Brian, thanks so much for coming on. Great to have you. Tell us about the state of Qualtrics right now. Everyone wants to know. Like Qualtrics, like the most successful tech company out of Utah, maybe in our history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's incredible. Obviously, it spawned a jazz owner, a hockey club owner, a Real Salt Lake owner, and the Smith family in its entirety has done incredible things. But now there's like a new chapter of Qualtrics. So tell us about it.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be the most exciting chapter of the company. I just want to be clear about that. One of the reasons why I'm still here. So I think as we look at the category that we invented about 7 years ago, we call it experience management. We think that that category is ripe for sort of the next phase of growth in terms of taking customers into use cases that, only very few companies are sort of pursuing at the moment. And so there's a lot of early adoption happening in terms of the possibilities that our platform brings to our customer base. And now we've got AI coming in, and that's obviously a big focus for us. And so as we think about the transformative power of AI as it relates to our existing customer base and the opportunity we had to take this category to its next phase of evolution, we see enormous growth opportunity, more growth opportunity than I've ever seen in the history of the company. And so obviously as you try to scale a business, right, we're in the billions of revenue now. And so as you get into
That's
those
so
types,
crazy.
It is. And as you get into those types of numbers, it becomes challenging in terms of, well, how are you going to continue to maintain high growth rates on a big base like that? And as you think about the markets you're going after, right, you got to make sure they're big markets. You've got right to win. And so I think those things are coming together for us. Doesn't mean it's easy, never is, right? Execution's hard as heck. And certainly we know the headwinds, the macro environment, just being faced by enterprise software generally right now is, it's not easy for most folks out there right now. But again, I think the outlook is super bright, and I think we've got a long, long way to go in terms of where we can take experience management.
I want to ask you about AI, but real quick, give everyone the kind of calendar of events, like how this all broke down. So Qualtrics was about to go public, got acquired by SAP.
Mm-hmm.
We then had Bill McDermott and Ryan on stage at Silicon Slopes Summit talking about that. I think it was like soon after that.
X plus O. Yeah.
And then that's not the last thing that happened. It's not even the last time it's exited or been like. Tell us like how did all this happen?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you my perspective. I don't know if I truly know how it all happened, but we had a good run with SAP. I think one of the things that we realized is as we tried to grow the market, we felt limited, particularly from a partner and an ecosystem perspective, what we could go and do when owned by a company like SAP.
Yeah.
And so we saw enormous opportunity, things to open up for us if there was some sort of separation there. And so, over the course of time, things sort of played out. I think they needed some cash, and, we needed some strategic value opened up for us. And so, there's a meeting of the minds. We made the decision to spin out from SAP.
So how long were you in SAP?
Just under 3 years, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was pretty quick stint, and then not quite 2 years, I believe, as a public company. It's all a blur for me, so I'm kind of just going off the top of my head here. But I mean, we thought we were going to go public, and then, literally hours before that all changed, and then it's been a wild ride ever since. But I think that, if there ever was a time where you don't want to be in the public spotlight right now, just given the turbulence that's out there, I think now's the time. And so we're grateful to be in a situation where we can move fast and make moves that might otherwise be kind of hard to do if you were public.
Yeah. What do you think about the public markets currently when you look at everything that's happening, the volatility, how crazy it is? Like, I mean, you're seeing like record highs and then like record lows, and like we're just in like this, and it seems like we're in a downturn right now for how it's working as we speak today. Who knows what it'll look like when this thing is published in like a week?
Yeah. The volatility right now is remarkable, and I don't know personally that I expect that to slow down. just when you look at what's happening out there. Obviously, we got the election going on in the U.S. Two what looks like are going to be two pretty big wars, happening overseas. You got what's going on in Japan right now, which is pretty wild.
It is wild.
And so there's a lot out there, right? That are the uncontrollables. And I think that, it'll be a great sort of sifting of quality companies from companies maybe that don't have the quality that people may have thought. And I think that's a sort of a natural sort of cyclical thing to go through. And so I think things will play out in a fairly interesting way over the next, 12, 24 months, who knows? But I think it'll just be a way of really quality rising to the top. And, I think we'll see market consolidation. We've already seen some companies that haven't even been able to survive it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll see more of that.
You mentioned earlier that Qualtrics invented experience management, and you really did. And now it's become like a whole industry.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? Like, I actually kind of remember because we were doing some Silicon Slub stuff at the time. And I remember Ryan talking about this before it launched. And I was like, experience management. Because I remember it because there was also another company that was going to launch some other kind of like new category thing that I don't think worked as well as experience management did.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, this is really interesting to see what happens. As soon as experience management launched, it seems like it changed the whole trajectory of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. The way that came about was, I think it was Ryan was like, look, we've built this platform that can be used in so many different ways. Like, do we actually understand like what our customers are doing with it? And so we actually went and did the study on our own customer base and sort of did the Pareto of use cases. And it's kind of one of those rare, like genuine aha moments when you look at the data and you're like, oh, wow, like there's clear clusterings of, we got customers that are using us to do customer research, customer experience. You got customers using us to do employee stuff. You got a whole bunch of brand stuff that's happening, right? And then you got people that are doing like product research.
Mm-hmm.
And it just popped when you looked at that. But it's not like you then just easily go from that to like, oh, like it's experience management. Like we went through a pretty extensive and assisted process with the senior leadership team of the company to really kind of figure out, do all these things come together in some way? Like, is this stuff kind of connected or is it not? And if it's connected, that feels like an exciting category opportunity. If it's not, then like,
yeah,
great. Like we should just call it what it is. And like, we've got 4 different businesses and whatever.
Yeah.
But I think a lot in those discussions, I remember a lot of that leadership coming from Ryan and Jared in particular, his brother. And I remember exactly where I was when Jared called me. I was driving into work and he's like, hey, what do you think about experience management? And I was like, Jared, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I think that's what the 4 things are. I think it's customer experience, employee. And I'll be honest, my initial reaction was like, like maybe that sounds weird. Like, what is that? XM? Like,
yeah,
but you go through it and you think about it long enough, and we all got behind it, and sort of we kicked it off at our X4 event that year, and we've never looked back.
Does it freak you out that other companies are now experience management companies? Like, are you surprised by that?
No, not surprised by it. Expected it, hoped for it, right? We look at that as validation.
Yeah.
That the category is legit. We also look at that as there's still a lot of awareness building, right? Category building work that has to happen. That's hard work, thankless work, but is real work. And the more that we can have helping us do that, we look at that as like, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. How's AI going to change all of this?
I mean, honestly, I think the journey's still, the jury's still out on that, right? I think what I am seeing is that the promise of AI is real and it's concrete. In reality, I think what organizations are finding is that it's really hard to get AI to work sufficiently accurately at scale.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, like we have lots of use cases that will be very valuable to our customers, both in terms of like just making them more efficient, but like getting them to better insight and to better action. We know that AI can absolutely do that. And we've gone and done it for, a small number of customers. But the way you have to build that is that it just works correctly at scale.
Mm-hmm.
And that is proving to be a very interesting engineering challenge. And I think that's why you don't see a ton of like amazing use cases already out in the market, right? It still
really
feels very conceptual
Mm-hmm.
and squishy. And my personal opinion is that that's one of the big reasons why most organizations are struggling with that.
I imagine you're using it for internal. Like it does seem like we figured out like how to use it to manage meetings better, manage calendars, but like I don't know,
Yeah.
like all that stuff kind of already existed anyways. But like it seems like AI might be helping productivity internally. It's not clear at all to me how AI companies like there's tech startups, there's blockchain startups. It actually kind of feels more like a blockchain type of a thing. Like that's a real technology with real value.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we figured out with blockchain how to make companies out of them. And it might be the same thing with AI.
It could. I mean, a lot of people out there talking about, an AI, quote unquote, an AI bubble bursting. And, I don't know. I think that there are AI use cases that, are interesting and where organizations can sort of build a company around. I don't know exactly what all those are, but I don't know that you necessarily need to have a unique proprietary data set that no one else has, to have a path to win.
Yeah.
Obviously, for a lot of the big use cases that we talk about classically, I think that's absolutely true, right? But I think there's things maybe that we haven't even thought about yet where organizations can bring those capabilities to market and maybe build businesses around them. But to your point, like I don't know that we've really seen that yet, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like what's going to happen is a lot of the big tech players, I think there's going to be winners and losers. And I think when we look back over the next 5-7 years, we'll realize just how significant this moment was. And the organizations that were able to figure it out, the organizations that had the data that was actually valuable. I mean, I think that there's an organization out there right now that's doing a lot of advertising on television right now that I think has a very questionable AI value prop, in my humble opinion. And so, I think these are things that will obviously they'll play out over time, but I expect that there will be companies built on new AI capabilities that, don't exist today. And I think that there will be a consolidation of big tech players that win in this space.
Yeah. So far, it's been really great for NVIDIA.
Oh, yeah.
Like your picks and shovels company, they're doing incredibly well. OpenAI seems to be leading a little bit on the tech front. I don't know how far ahead they are anymore. I do think the open source stuff and what Zuck is doing is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I think we underestimate Zuck.
Don't disagree with that. And I would also tell you that our view is that the gap that we've seen between OpenAI and some of the other LLMs out there and what their competitor set is rapidly closing.
Yeah,
that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So we're also seeing, and this needs to happen, the cost to use, right, come down dramatically as well. But it's still very, very expensive. That's the other thing that I think organizations are also grappling with is the cost of all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like your cost structure changes meaningfully, right? Depending on the type of AI capability you're delivering to a customer. That then has pricing implications. And so there's a lot that's got to be thought through from an execution perspective to do this right.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, when I do think of companies that have a lot of data and proprietary data, I do think Qualtrics is one of them. Now, it is like your customers' proprietary data, right? But isn't there a way to implement AI into all of the data that's being gathered using Qualtrics?
If you can aggregate it and anonymize it, you've likely got a chance to do that. We were lucky to sort of anticipate many years ago the need to put into our contracts, language around that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're not going to do things that would put any sort of customer data at risk. I mean,
yeah, of course.
You've got to make sure that you're completely buttoned up from that perspective, and I think that we are. But to the extent that you can anonymize and aggregate, and it's a unique data set, then yes, and I would agree with you. I do think that Qualtrics has multiple unique data sets. I mean, just our market research data set. So just what we understand about consumers and consumer preferences and consumer behavior alone, forget about like what we understand about consumer or customer experience or employee preferences and employee experience. I mean, these are all areas where we think that we've got, a unique opportunity to bring some really, really interesting use cases to organizations that gets them to value so much quicker than they're able to get to value today. It's like, imagine you have a market research question and it's like, you bring it to us and with hours, we have insight for you. It's not, hey, let us go run a 10-week research project, and then go make decisions. It's like, we've got it for you in hours.
Yeah.
That's an example of the type of vision we have.
Yeah. As you look around the rest of Utah, the rest of the ecosystem, it does seem like it's been a bit of an off year, 2024, a hard year, lots of layoffs, even like really prominent companies have done tons of layoffs here in the state of Utah. What is the state of the software as a service market, tech market in general in Utah, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's a very specific question. I don't know that I see enormous difference between the state of the Utah market and just like call it SaaS or software generally. I think that the market's gotten to a place where it's big enough and sort of more reflective of, broader market conditions. When you go look at what's happened in tech, software in particular, you look at what's happened to next 12-month revenue growth rates, the forecasted revenue growth, and that those forecasts going from mid-20s to low teens in less than a year, right? I mean, that's in the aggregate. That's at a portfolio level. Well, then that everyone's new growth is deeply, deeply negative. So everyone's growth rate, well, I say everyone, most organizations' growth rate is slowing, and it's slowing quite rapidly for that type of impact to manifest itself in terms of revenue growth. And so that's happening broadly. And I think that that's obviously happening here. And to the extent that an organization's maybe more focused on like SMB or more, like straight B2C, like, I think you're going to see some pain, maybe a little bit more pain in those pockets, those segments, and those business models than you might otherwise see. But generally, I mean, I think there's just a lot of headwind out there. And I don't know that as I look forward to 2025, I don't know that I see a lot of things that I can point to that are going to massively turn that around. I'm not an economist, right? But like, we'll put the US election behind us, but
we'll know who the president is, but I don't know. Like, I don't know that really matters all that much when we're talking about these types of things. It would be great if the wars ended. I do think that's something. Like, if there was some way to stop these two wars, I think that would help the economy.
I think the wars are certainly a factor, and then I just think cost of capital, is not sorted out, in my opinion, and I think there's still quite a bit to play out on that front as well.
This is kind of another version of that same question, but I wonder how you think about the startup tech scene, venture scene here in the state of Utah, and what potential it has over the next, let's just say, like 3 to 5 years.
I think that there's been a couple of things have happened, right? I think you've had a sort of nucleus of companies that have been successful and that have grown to some size and that have been a part of bringing in outside talent as well as developing the talent that's already here. And then you look at, it's a very, very educated community here in Utah. you've got a lot of language capability here in Utah. So you kind of look at these things and you say, you start to understand why we've seen the explosion that we've seen in the tech space in particular in Utah. And I think that I don't see that slowing down. In fact, you might actually see that accelerate. Just the more successful founders and entrepreneurs that get produced out of that ecosystem. I mean, I already see it. I see it just from my own network, right? And people that have left these organizations and gone on to...
Qualtrics has produced a lot of companies.
Lots of companies, right? And it's a great thing, right? And we're not the only ones that are contributing to that, right? And so I think that flywheel is well in motion, and I would expect it to continue to accelerate.
What about this incubator thing that Ryan's working on? Is that part of Qualtrics?
Not part of Qualtrics. Don't know much about it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Completely separate.
So obviously love Ryan. He's a co-founder of this organization, Silicon Slopes. Everything he's doing for the state of Utah, I always call him the president of Utah, right? Like, I think he is too. But what have you learned from him over the years?
So many things. I don't know that we have enough time. So I'll just maybe hit some of the things that are top of mind. He's such a motivator, and his ability to just inspire people to want to follow him and like run through walls for him is quite remarkable. And there's lots of things that I think contribute to that, but I think when you have the opportunity to really work with him, not just kind of know him or know of him, but like be in the trenches with him, it's a pretty special opportunity. And his ability to like lead you through, it's really, when I joined the company, we were roughly 120 million in revenue, and then we went and did all the things that you talked about earlier. Ryan was the one like kind of making a lot of that happen. Right. Yeah. And so this, just his ability to have a vision for the future and figure out like what's got to happen to go and get that. I've never seen somebody call their shot like Ryan.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like whatever he says, is going to happen.
It's crazy.
It's because of the track record there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's one thing. I think he's an incredible seller, right? And his understanding of just sales. I took on the responsibility for the Qualtrics sales organization about a year ago now, and I go to Ryan for thoughts, advice, all the time, just because of how well he understands go to market from an enterprise software perspective. And so I think there's true genius there. And then a creative mind, like
super creative,
just look at the stuff he's done with the jazz that's very public. And then, 10x that. And that's kind of what it was like to be on the inside of Qualtrics and watch him, birth this category, brand it, all of it, is pretty special.
The unsung hero, and I think he likes it this way in this story, is Jared.
His brother,
Ryan's brother, co-founder, all that. What have you learned from him?
So many things. Like I don't know that I've learned more or less from Jared relative to Ryan. They're both incredibly special people, and people that I would go to the end of the earth for, and that have been certainly a part of my own personal development and all the success that I've had at the company. But Jared is probably the best operator I've ever known. His capacity to understand problems, solve those problems, and then execute against those problems in very short periods of time is unlike anything that I've seen before. He's also one of the most principled leaders that I've ever come across, and not just principled from like how you lead, but principled from like how you operate. And a lot of the things that he brought to the company were scale enablers, right? He brought a lot of like, here's how we do hiring, here's how we do promotions, here's how, like a lot of that stuff that's kind of thankless work, but ultimately like important underpinnings to like how you grow and scale a business. Like he was driving a lot of that. I remember he was kind of in and out. And so he'd be in, and then, it'd be a little bit chaotic because he was disruptive, but in very good ways.
Mm-hmm.
I remember shortly after I joined the company, he realized like we needed to like 3x the size of our engineering team, that we were just way behind where we needed to be. And he came in and kicked off a process and had a pipeline, an incredible pipeline built in a matter of days, right? And had that problem fixed inside of months, not quarters, and certainly not years. And so, those are just some of the things that I've learned from Jared. But I would just say anybody that ever has the opportunity to work with either of those individuals should jump at it.
Yeah. What about your career path? I mean, how long are you staying here? When are you launching a company?
I don't have any plans to launch.
Ryan would probably hate that I just asked that question.
No, it's a fair question. Look, I mean, like I said, kind of at the beginning, right? I remain more optimistic about the future of the company than ever. Obviously the company went through a very difficult time last year with our restructure that we did at the beginning of Q4. That's had a profound effect on me. And right now, what I'm focused on is just doing everything that I can to make the company as successful as it can be, whatever capacity that's in. Like, great, like I'll sign up for that. If it's do more, if it's do less, whatever. I think we've got an incredible group of people at the company, people that I love deeply, and I'm all in on them, and I'm all in on our customers. I'm all in on our partners. And so I don't really, and maybe I should take more time to do this, but I don't really think about what's next. I think about what's right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
When I joined the company, Ryan used to talk about, he liked people that would burn the boats. Like there's one mission. There's not like, well, maybe we'll do this, but if that doesn't work, we'll go do this other thing. Like, I think I burned the boats a long time ago. And so I remain all in on doing everything we can to continue to grow the company. I mean, I like we're just over 5,000 people. So it's like we talk like Qualtrics is a big company, but it's really not, right?
Yeah.
We're really not that big. I think there's the opportunity to turn this thing into an incredible generational company and call it a business beacon for Utah and the Utah tech scene, that it's only sort of just starting, right?
Yeah, like Utah's version of like a Salesforce or
100%
an SAP, right? That's
our vision, right? That's our ambition, and we talk about that all the time inside the walls of the company.
Brian, thank you so much for coming in. Seriously,
of course, happy to do it, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right.